Welcome to another episode of Wayne's World Garage. Today we're working on Sam's 1997 BMW M3. It wouldn't crank over, the engine wouldn't turn over with the starter, and once we did get it to turn over, it wouldn't start. So the initial diagnosis was it needed a new starter. Well, that was not a diagnosis, that was a guess. So we proved the starter was good, and now we're trying to get it to run, because now it cranks over, but no spark. It's not running. So here's how we're trying to figure out what's going on. Please watch. Give us some ideas if you think you have any ideas how to fix this thing. Thank you. Okay, welcome to another episode of Wayne's World Garage. Today, we're going to finish up a project we started earlier this week. My neighbor Sam has a BMW M3, which he's in love with, as any 24-year-old should be. It turns out, though, this car has a salvage title, which means, of course, that at one time it was destined for the dumpster. But somebody bought it, rebuilt it, and made it like new. At least that's what he was told. I'm not sure it's like new, but it's pretty shiny, so it looks good. The problem is, it's been on my lift for 2 days, 3 days now. My truck has been outside during the hurricane. Fortunately, no damage has been done to the truck. So why is it here on the lift, and what are we doing here? The issue is no crank, no start. Well, that shouldn't be too hard. We'll change the starter. And my suggestion to young Sam, let's not change the starter yet. Let's test out the starter. So the starter is on the driver's side, down low, but you put it up on a lift, and you can touch a solenoid to it. We touch a solenoid to 12 volts, it cranks over like a son of a gun. Well, that's exciting, but it wouldn't start. So to get it on a lift, we decided, well, let's bring it down here. We're going to push down here. I said, well, we start with a clutch. Pop the clutch and turn the engine over and it should start right up. It wouldn't start. And we did it 3 or 4 times. So Sam's buddy Vrej, came over last night and looked at it, cranked it over and says, well, the speedometer is not moving. Tachometer. The tachometer didn't move when you cranked it over. We noticed that when I tried to clutch start it, that the tachometer didn't move. The tachometer apparently, and I'm not a BMW ace mechanic, this is what we work on, the real trucks. The tachometer apparently gets its signal from the crankshaft position sensor. Aha, and that's a hint. And our other hint is we did remove the spark plug on number 1. And to do that, you have to take this piece of plastic off and this thing off. It's kind of a pain, and take out the whole assembly is like 3 feet buried down there. It's pretty weird. But we didn't get any spark. Again, that's another apparent symptom of a bad crankshaft sensor. So why would the crankshaft sensor and it not start at the same time? So it's kind of a hint. I'm not sure. We measured the crankshaft sensor last night with a meter, and it's open resistance all over, which I don't believe is right. So Sam's very kind mom picked up a new one today, and we're going to test it out before we put it in, and then we'll put it in and see what happens. And if it starts, that's cool. Now, the one thing of interest is it does crank on its own now. And what did he do to make it crank on its own? I don't know if we can see this or not. So inside the glove compartment is this little yellow box, this little yellow connector. You pull that off, and that's EWS, which does something. And with EWS pulled off, we put a jumper on it between a couple of wires, which he found on the interweb, and we jumped those wires and it cranked over. So who knows? Although now, when you go to crank it over, you don't need to push in the clutch. So it bypassed the interlock on the clutch. Maybe, who knows? So I'm a little bit worried this may not be the fix by changing the sensor, but he bought it, it's going in. And let's see how that goes. It's not hard to put this thing in. It's a 5mm bolt under there and 1 connector. Sam the man, you're on video.
Hey guys.
We are putting in the brand new crankshaft position sensor, but before we do that, we're going to test it against the old one on the Fluke 87 volt ohm meter. And this bad boy cost you how many dollars?
$158.54.
That's a lot of brewskis.
So let's just hope it works.
But it comes with a new O-ring.
No, it didn't. That was $2 extra.
All right, so let's do this. Let's bench test it. Okay, so Sam is a high-speed engineer, so he knows all about meters and stuff. So what we're gonna do,
Here's the old one.
here's the old one. We'll do this again. I tested it last night.
Show comparison
We're
here.
gonna do a comparison, so do me a favor. Hold that so I can get my fingers, hold this up like that.
There you go.
And then, as we can see on the meter, when you short these out, it shows pretty close to 0 ohms. Short circuit, open circuit, 0.
You need the ground.
No, I'm good. So these are the 2 outer connectors. Okay, and we're showing 6.64 mega ohms inside, open, 1 and 2, 14 mega ohms. So let me get this real quick. Okay, so now we've got the brand new $100 sensor we are going to test. Now this hopefully will be good. So you hold it like that, please. Here we are, short circuit again. And we do terminals, I'll call this terminal 1, the middle one 2. 23 mega ohms, and 1 and 3. 7.6, which kind of like the other one. Well, this is a little bit different though, between 2 and 3. 2 and 3 is open circuited. I thought they'd have more resistance, frankly.
So the average range for a healthy sensor is actually 550 ohms.
So where do we supposed to read 550? Oh, do we need to put a piece of metal here?
Potentially. That's what we did yesterday.
Yeah, we did that yesterday. I didn't do it today. And it could be we don't have a clue what we're doing.
Disclaimer to everybody watching. We could be idiots.
Well, I still don't show that I don't see a whole lot of difference, frankly. And that's a piece of metal. But we're gonna pop it in since you own it now. So here we go.
Well, if it's faulty, I'm gonna tell them it's faulty. But the only way to see is...
We'll see, because one of the symptoms, like Reg said, is the speedometer or the tachometer did not register when we pushed it or cranked it.
So no tach reading at all.
So now, young Sam, wearing these heavy-duty work boots, check these things out. This is what the kids wear today. All right, let her rip, Tater Chip. Bring it. Keep going, keep going. A little bit more. All right. Now feel it. Let it click in. Okay, it's to the lock. Go up some. You go ka-chunk. There you go. Now, what you do is lower down just a little bit.
Push it in, right?
Very slowly, because it'll slam.
Do I hold this?
No, because that's a lot mechanical. Now push it down. Now it locked in.
Ah.
So now we can work underneath it. So now, I cannot imagine we're going to be able to see this.
We're gonna get a light?
Yeah, we're going to get a light in here. We're set it for low light.
It's right up underneath the starter.
Yeah.
You can see through these fuel lines.
Let me see if we can push this up. Since I drove over my GoPro 8 with my tractor, we can't use that, and that's much smaller.
Being a BMW, of course, they don't want to put the starter in a good location. They want to put it under the intake.
So it's kind of up in here somewhere. I'm going to put my finger in the hole. I think I am. Yes. So, can you see anything?
But, ladies and gentlemen, Wayne's finger is in the hole.
Yes. So I don't think it's going to work. Hold on to the. Let me try a little more light up there. Oh, actually.
Oh, there you go.
So I don't know if we can see it up there. There's a little hole up there, and that's where this bad boy goes. So anyway, Sam the man is going to install this bad boy. So first, so what we're doing right now is you stick your finger in there to get a clue where this hole is. So it's very conveniently located, but actually it's not bad on a lift. This could be much worse. So when you push it in, you'll feel it go in, okay? And now you just try to click in. So you just click.
No, it's not in.
Okay.
All right, I think that's in.
So you should be able to turn it like a few degrees left or right. I can feel it too.
Yeah, you can get in there and just quality control me. You'll be able to feel this.
Yeah. If you say it's on there, okay. Here's a wire.
Here, let me
Where's
get
the
in.
relationship to the wire? Well, if you say it's in the hole, it's in the hole.
I think it's in the hole.
Okay, so point it at 10.
I mean, it's in the hole, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right on it.
Okay.
Right here.
Let me see.
So
what the heck you're
follow.
pointing at.
So the wire right here, sensor right here.
Yep.
Here's the sensor. You
Yep.
see that? And you can wiggle it a couple degrees.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
can actually wiggle it around.
Yeah, it's right in front of the sensor, right? Or the wire. All right.
So now I'm gonna
Yep.
try and put the screw in.
Yep.
Really don't want to lose this.
We have more of those. It's a standard 5mm Allen.
Is it?
Yep. So that may be easier holding the socket, by the way, but try that out.
Well,
And if it's up too high, I can lower the car a little bit.
I have an idea.
Yeah, righty tighty, lefty loosey. That's my idea.
Ha ha ha. So I want to put it just in the hole of the.
Yeah, it's gonna. If you can, it needs to be about at 2 o'clock or something, right?
I will be damned.
You get it?
First try.
We're gonna take the little 4mm.
I don't need it yet.
Well, no, that'll get you on there and crank it a little bit if you could. You know what I'm saying? That's all we're trying to do.
Well, I guess the
You got
moral
it?
of the story is if you're going to do this to your E36 of any variety, try and get a lift.
It looked to me like you got it cranked a little bit.
In there, but I'm starting to sweat.
Here's a Kodak moment. Sam is plugging this in. We believe we've got the screws in the right hole. Hopefully we didn't put it in the exhaust manifold, but I don't think we did.
I heard a click,
You heard it click,
which means
which means you snapped the thing in, which is a good thing.
I think so.
So now the moment of truth.
You want me to?
We're gonna lower this bad boy down, crank it over, and see if it runs. And that way, old Blue can get her spot back in the garage. There you go. And this is what year again?
1997.
97.
Same year
A
as me.
fine year. Same year what?
As me.
As you. Oh my God.
3.2 liter.
The
inline six.
3.2, and these calipers, the red on them actually makes it them dissipate heat quicker. Is that why you have them red?
It's actually added horsepower.
Added horsepower. Okay.
Overspray on your rotors.
Gee, got it.
That
Got
was
it.
the
All right.
previous.
The rotors look nice. The
somewhere-
wheels look nice. All right. BMW M Power. All right. So this is the moment of truth. How exciting. Let her rip, tater chip.
As long as this is done.
Now, if this works, we will be thrilled.
Sorry.
I'm still kind of curious why we had a jumper, that one thing, so I'm a little bit,
So that I figured that why that happened.
I'm just dubious that two things failed at the same time. Damn. That's not good.
Isn't that weird?
Well, yeah, shucks. Well, that's disappointing. I ran over a GoPro today and your car doesn't start.
Well, hold on. Is there something blatantly obvious I'm missing?
Only that you possibly didn't put that connector on all the way. Now, that jumper you put on the EWS, there's still something that still bothers me.
That bothers me too. So I think with the EWS bypass, that's something else because that controls the security system of the car. So when the crank sensor goes bad, that takes away crank and it takes away spark. However,
Correct. Is your tachometer moving?
I don't know how he got it.
So that's a hint. And that's what Vrej said yesterday.
So what the EWS does though, I actually think my EWS was working fine when we bypassed it. And if you know anything about these cars, that's a common issue. It's a prone to failure electrical component in that attaches to the DME and the main computer of the car, right? So what I think I did by bypassing a functioning system was give myself back the crank feature that we got taken away by, and this is just a theory, that the, what's it called? The crankshaft position sensor took away. We restored that by bypassing that even though it was working.
Okay.
And we still don't have spark, obviously, because it's not letting the car spark. However, now, my theory comes into question given that we've replaced the crank sensor with a new one, bolted it down, plugged it in. The only other way to test this, I guess, would be to plug the EWS module back in as stock and see if it makes a difference.
Doesn't hurt to do. It's easy to do, right?
Well, it was annoying to get that freaking sensor off, but I guess.
Yeah, but now you know how it comes off and on and off, so it should be easier.
Right.
All right, update quickly. I should add it. We put the EWS back the way it's supposed to be.
The car started.
We meaning Sam.
It wasn't a great cold start, but it turned over.
And it cranked and it ran like a normal car.
It actually got up to 2,000 RPM.
And now I have no confidence in anything we've done, but we're gonna put it back the way it was at 1 o'clock when Sam got here and see if it runs.
So what we know is, had we not touched the EWS and we put a new crank sensor in,
Would it have started?
it in theory would have started.
So how much time you have this afternoon is a real question. So let's put it back the way you had it, okay? See if it starts when you put that jumper in, okay? And then what we can do is if it cranks over, then what we can do is actually just unplug the crank position sensor and see if that prevents it from cranking, right? If you can reach in there.
So I'm gonna.
So actually, this is, I don't know about anybody else, but it's kind of fascinating. So Sam is putting it, where does this thing go, Sam? Where do you put this wire?
So when you're bypassing the EWS2 system, these cars, I believe 95 and up, and somebody in the comments might be like, it was September 96, whatever. I know the 95s have the EWS2 as well. This system right here connects directly to the DME, which is the computer of the car, which is connected to the main wire harness behind a firewall in the engine bay, right? So this essentially is an additional security component of the car. It's got another component in the engine tumbler, or the ignition tumbler, excuse me, and it all works basically to make it harder to steal your car. And, you know, recognize the key. Basically, this gets there's a ton of videos on it.
So what did you jumper? You put a jumper where?
So these two main wires, this is how you do it. There's
color?
a green and black wire and a yellow and black wire.
Bypass the whole thing.
If you jump them by closing the circuit between those two and putting a copper wire in their ports.
Copper welding wire.
Yes, in the male part of the sensor.
Got it.
We use the welding wire. It essentially bypasses this component of the EWS system within the car.
All right. So now the question is, let's try it one more time and see what happens now. Hey, Paula.
Paula, we got the car to start.
I'm not confident of anything. So this will just be a test. So hold on a second. So Sam's going to crank it over.
Where we are now. Let me explain where we are now.
All right, go ahead.
So we swapped the sensors for the crank position, and we tried to start the car with the EWS2 bypassed. The car gave us crank like it had been the past couple of days, but no spark. So we essentially just put the EWS2 system back together organically, and the car turned over.
And started. And ran.
Yes, and it ran, and it began to actually idle. So we turned it off pretty quickly. We re-bypassed the EWS, and we're going to start it again. And this is obviously all
We're going
for
to try to start it again. All right.
diagnostic purposes.
All right. Let it rip, Tater Chip.
And
Do it again. So my suggestion is there's potentially something in the EWS.
sounds like it.
I'm trying to think, which also needs bypassing. I don't know.
So it
So
sounds
now
to
when
me
you
like
put
my-
the EWS back,
Essentially, this is my theory now, and somebody might know this, it's not me, obviously. I think my EWS is actually shockingly still working fine,
Yeah.
and it's confusing the system that I'm actually trying to bypass it now when it's functional.
I think you're on to something.
So, we're gonna plug it back in, and if it starts, I think that would allow us to safely determine
So
the
if it
fact
starts, if we could, then we should unplug the crank position sensor, right? And see if it doesn't start. And that would prove something. Because right now, I'm still a little bit skeptical,
as am I.
but I don't know how hard it is to unplug that either, you know?
Well, here in Wayne's World, we have the time to test things.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So the DMEs in these cars, you know, aren't that complicated compared to the DMEs in modern vehicles, and it honestly scares me to even think about working on one of those cars.
All right, let me pause this. Okay, so now,
We've put the EWS2 module back together behind the glove box compartment, and we're going to start it, and theoretically it should crank over.
So now, do you think you can unplug the crank position sensor?
Well, it definitely won't start without a crank position sensor.
Will it turn over, the engine turn over?
Without a crank position sensor at all.
That's what you were thinking, and I'm not sure of that.
So with
It
no
shouldn't
crank
make
position sensor plugged in.
Was that potential? If we changed the sensor, but what did we fix? Because it was not cranking over before, and it's cranking over now. Why is it cranking over now? Is it because it's Friday
Because
instead
the
of
functional
Wednesday?
crank position sensor will actually provide signal, essentially, I assume, to the spark plugs to actually spark. Or through the
But
cord
that's got
pads.
nothing to do with the engine, the starter. You see where I'm coming
I
from?
don't like how it's taking so long to crank over though right now.
Right.
So that's a little bizarre to me, right? But
It might, I don't know. All right, so hang on. Well, let's regroup here. Okay, so here's the theory. I don't know if there's any validity to this theory or not, that the crank position sensor is not allowing it to crank over, which I don't know. So Sam went underneath it, unplugged the crank position sensor, so the ECU is certainly not getting a signal from it. Will it crank?
so if it
Now,
does
is your
crank,
EWS plugged in?
my EWS is rack installed, and we've unplugged the crank sensor. And like Wayne and I were just discussing off camera, essentially we don't want to just change parts. We want to ensure that we've solved the issue. So instead of saying, okay, it starts now, we changed a part out, we plug something back in, we're going to unplug it and make sure that this isn't that this part was restricting the actual signal from providing spark to the engine, not just, oh, it started again.
Right. And making it so it wouldn't crank over. All right, let her rip. You unplugged it?
I unplugged it.
That's not possible.
And it's idling fine. It's idling 800.
Is the tachometer reading?
Yeah, I'm at 800 RPM.
You sure you unplugged it?
I unplugged that thing. And that has this weird cold start thing where it dips down to 600 for a minute.
Turn it off.
Wait, hold on. It sputters for a second.
Turn it off.
I have no idea.
All right, so here we are. We are totally baffled.
So he said, my buddy Marcus said, from all the crank sensor failures I've seen, the car will still start, but it'll idle like dog shit.
We'll
They're
see.
filming.
All right, we don't know what's going on with it. But anyway,
I'm just
so
putting this-
possibly we put the new crankshaft sensor in,
Now I'm
maybe
just
got enough signal to make it happy, and now we're trying to put some of these zip ties back in it. That's a good job on that zip tie. It's perfect. Where's the other ones? What are we
I'm
looking
not doing zip ties.
We're not doing zip ties. This is
bolt.
high speed.
This damn bolt in here. You see that bolt? I can't tell if it's in.
Which I don't see it.
It's right there, Wayne.
Point it. Put your hand on it so I can see it.
You see it? Get where I am?
No, I don't.
You got, oh.
I don't see it. Is it in? I'll put my hand in here. Let me feel it.
You feel it up top?
Yeah, this guy here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can spin
well,
that
you-
guy in.
Well, what size is he?
I don't know.
I can't. I don't have the grip to spin him by hand. But you don't know. What do you mean you don't know?
I don't know what size it is.
All right, so let's get a socket on it and see. Stand by. So what we're thinking here is maybe the new crank position sensor gave it enough signal to the ECU to let it know, okay, we're good to go, let's fire up. But by unplugging it, it'll take a while without that crank position giving it good data before it says, I ain't gonna run anymore. And I'm starting to think that might be what happens. So we'll see.
There's one thing I've learned throughout this process. It's all about the data.
Yes. The one thing is, yes, we need to be able to graph the data.
Wayne was saying,
Yes.
a lot of people just change parts. But you want to prove that the part you're actually changing is going to solve your problem. And understand why.
And that's what young Sam is learning how to do. All right. Okay, well, stay tuned here. Sam left for 2 weeks of guard duty. We're going to check the ground at the crank sensor and check the power and see what the signal looks like at the sensor and the ECU. I'm thinking it's a ground issue. In the meantime, we'll have round 2 of this in a couple weeks. Stay tuned. If you like this, hit subscribe. Send us some comments if you know how to fix it. We sure as heck are just guessing. Take care.